matters. Right now, we're going to get into something very special, something that's curated just for NAMM, just for the EngineEars booth. We got some special guests here. First and foremost, I'm going to bring on my guy, the legend, the founder, the originator of this mixed by shit. Make some noise for Ali. Right. Yeah. Of course, NOIS. Make some noise for NOIS. Boss, ladies and gentlemen, Boss.
Yo, 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 yo.
Elite. My guy, Nick.
Check, check. Hey, turn me up.
$1,000,000 Turn Ali's mic up, please.
Turn me up, B. Hey, how's everybody doing today? Can you guys hear me out there, fun? Man, where's the energy? Can you guys hear me out there right now? Make some fucking... Come on now, we at NAMM right now. Look, we going crazy. Before we begin, man, this is my first time hitting the stage today. We got an incredible weekend. Man, I want to say thank you guys for, just the support that we've been getting building EngineEars over the past couple of years, man. We're doing something groundbreaking. We're building this incredible community. We're building these tools that we all can understand that we need, right? So, I want to thank you all for the participation, the support. And I had tons of tequila, so let me shut the fuck up and let's continue.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say?
I love you, Head.
Thank you. Make sure you go to EngineEars.com. First, wait, before we get it, because this is your first time hitting the stage, just real quick, these people, these wonderful people who are on EngineEars.
Shout out to everybody up front, yeah.
If you are not on EngineEars, raise your hand if you are on EngineEars. If you are on EngineEars.
Incredible. Okay, shout out to everybody.
That's right.
Do you guys fuck with it or what? Do you guys love EngineEars or what? Can we make some noise like shit? Look, for the first time, we got something that we could build by us, for us, not some fuckheads in Silicon Valley. It's us building a new standard for our fucking industry. So let's support it, let's build it, and I'm always be there for y'all.
All right, so if you're not signed up, go to EngineEars.com. Make sure you do that. Amazing community and platform. This is right now the Making a Creed 3 soundtrack. First and foremost, I guess we'll start with Ali curating this experience for everybody. The importance of soundtracks. This is not your first rodeo in this arena, but working with the homies, I guess success is always better, right? Now, from a mixing standpoint, when it comes to mixing a soundtrack, is it a different approach than mixing an album?
Right. Soundtracks, first and foremost, I want to shout out to everybody on the stage for, the contribution. Boz himself, my brother for life, but, incredible creative that helped mold together the soundtrack. C. Roos, obviously, as well as assistant mixing. We got Depp mastering. We got Elite, incredible producer. But when it comes to the soundtrack, it's all about just finding a way to fuse in feelings from the movie to be able to, have that sonic experience that you would experience while watching a movie, right? So it's, again, it's the difficulties that I've experienced with working on other soundtracks from Black Panther to the Judas and the Black Messiah. It's just fusing everybody's different, everybody records different nowadays, right? When you're working on a soundtrack, it's almost like a compilation project where you're getting verses from, people from halfway across the world and, people recording in different sessions and, in different environments. As a mixer, it's about taming all of the different elements of the vocals to make them all sound consistent, right? So I feel like from mixing tons of other soundtracks, that's been the one of the most I would say challenging aspects to working on these soundtracks is blending those vocals together that come from different recordings and elements and different people.
Boss, make some noise for Boss, man.
Appreciate y'all.
I know you're not gonna acknowledge it or take credit, but you'll be instrumental in a lot of things that you don't get credit for, as far as
world builder.
Man, putting things together, bringing people in the room, giving people opportunities, stuff like that. Coming together to put together a soundtrack. First of all, shout out to Dreamville for producing the soundtrack of Creed 3. From an artist standpoint, right? When to what Ali was saying, as far as a different approach to making a soundtrack and blending everything together. You're no stranger to that with the Dreamville camps that are infamous at this point. What's your approach from an artist standpoint at being able to match other people's energy, other people's vibes, and creating a cohesive body for a movie soundtrack like Creed 3?
Yeah, you got to keep an open, collaborative process, I like to kind of be the host in all those sessions. I feel like I can pull people in. I got a really open process. You know what I mean? I feel like when you have those people that come in the rooms, some of them might have a great idea. They might be a little, apprehensive to express it. They might feel like they're a guest in the room, especially when we do our Dreamville camps. So I think, we just try to really host it with kind of just family aura. Let people come in, like, what's your idea? Go ahead, throw your 16 on there, throw your hook on there, throw your bridge on there, and then we'll sit here and we'll, try to A&R the record.
From an EP standpoint, I know that's not what you're doing, but because you do like to host the sessions, how do you decide who makes it on the soundtrack, who makes it on the music?
Yeah, I mean, that was Eve on this one, and Frank Brim, who EP.
Shout out to Frank.
Yeah. They, I think they had a very clear, and first of all, shout out to Michael B. Jordan. He had a very clear, direction he wanted. When we walked in to do those sessions, they had, a list in every room of, keywords, that they wanted us to pull inspiration from. So you just try to envision yourself as this boxer trying to get his championship shot or his shot at redemption. They made it very clear, the themes they wanted us to express. So I think, if you did that well, those were the songs that we're picking.
I think that could be the hardest part, in my opinion. I couldn't, as an artist, going in there intentionally and say, okay, I'm gonna embody triumph. Or I'm gonna embody.
I was going for the eye of the tiger money. You heard?
I ain't never mad at that, but that shit is it's impressive, man. It's the amount of focus and
Yeah, it's actually refreshing because you get caught in album cycles writing for yourself for years on end, and you kind of get to step out of that box and be free of your own self. Your own criteria. It don't. His story, it don't got to be true to me. I can just understand the emotions and convey it to the audience.
And Elite, I want to talk to you about crafting that cohesive sound from somebody that's not necessarily on the mic or in the forefront, right? Crafting that cohesive sound, it could be something as simple. I remember, I don't remember who I heard talk about it, but I remember talking about the Black Panther soundtrack and how Kendrick would be like, no, I want a siren to be right here from a production standpoint because this is the part of the movie that it reminded me of, or whatever the case may be. Crafting the cohesive sound when it comes to the music aspect, is that also a different approach from an album?
Well, for me, when I was at the camp, when we were working on Creed, I think a lot of the producers were kind of going for the rocky sound, the big triumphant kind of bangers and stuff. And I took the approach of kind of let me bring the Dreamville element to this soundtrack. You know what I mean? Let me not stray too far because we have to glue it together at some point and make it a Dreamville thing still. So I kind of try to stay true to that. And my beats tend to be kind of cinematic anyways. You know what I mean? So I kind of just let myself be a home base for the Dreamville artists at that camp and be a glue as far as providing that kind of Dreamville sound to the soundtrack. That was how I approached it. You know what I mean?
And then going from that to MillionDollarSnare, when he talks about the glue, right, putting the project together, I don't know too much about the technical aspect of it, but I would assume that there's still a cohesive glue that goes on the mastering process as well, or am I wrong?
Yeah, no, so Ali alluded to it earlier. When thinking about it from a mastering standpoint, we wanted to take a cinematic approach too. So it's not like a single genre album where we're mastering all trap, it's all hitting super hard, There's ballads, there's Afro beats, there's My Boy, it comes in it was track 2. And a ballad, we're not gonna approach the same way as something with heavy 808s, right? But in making it sound cohesive, we have to take all of that into account. So almost how a story is unfolding, we establish plot, it starts the climax, and then you get a little bit of relief, and that's what you should hear in some of the engineering as well. Not everything has to be loud, right? When you get to the ballad, you need a little bit of relief. And so that was our approach to that.
It's just something that I wanted to ask because I've always just been curious about this, right? Like you mentioned, there is some, you go from My Boy to Afro beats to more R&B eccentric type of records. What is your approach to finding the consistent loudness of a project like this where there are, what is your approach to that? I'm just really curious myself.
Yeah, so there's even other variables that you're aware of. So we had the single first. We had My Boy first, right? And so obviously we have this one track, it gets mixed and mastered before everything else. So it's really hard for us to anticipate what's going to come before and what's going to come after. But we have this anchor, right? So we can always come back to this one track sonically to see like, all right, are we in the same pocket as our anchor track? And we're not going to slam, what was it? Heavy as the
head.
Yeah. We're not going to slam that one because it's like, it's more melodic. There's no drums, but we want it to be close, right? So we have this anchor track, and as we're mastering, we're like keeping this anchor track as a reference to be like, all right, is this close? We don't want to ruin these mixes because they're also cinematic. Like you were saying before, like if we want the siren, up there, like it stays up there. It's supposed to be like this. So it's kind of taking all those things into consideration and then making the decisions to like, all right, where's the, how do we optimize it? Like, where's the middle ground between this one into the next track type of thing without ruining the mix, without ruining the vibe.
Right. Where how many mastering engineers are in the crowd right now? Oh, man, we got to, all right, well, shit. But the mastering engineers are light in attendance today. But is that your approach for, even a regular stereo album as well? Or not even, I'm sorry, not stereo, but like not a soundtrack album. Like, do you find that anchor track at first? All the mixes, like, so if you guys don't know, Depp masters everything that MixedbyAli does, that your boy NOIS does. He's done all the Boz records and tons of records that Elite produced. But it's like when we sending you these records, are you also like having that anchor track moment?
Yeah. So it depends. It depends how they come in. Like if I get sent 20 records at once, I'll kind of get an anchor track like in those first few records and like come back to like, all right, this fourth one I mastered is my new anchor. I'm going to go back and adjust the ones that I did the previous three. But sometimes we don't get that luxury because, we're being hired to do this work. So it's like, all right, this has to be done right now. This is the one that's the post-production's finished, like all the production's finished. It's going to mixing. Right. It has to come out so that the movie can come out on time.
Right,
so like we didn't have that luxury. But if your whole album is done, then and all the mixes
I gotta make sure I start sending you the best mixes from the jump to make sure those are the anchor tracks.
It doesn't even have to be the best mixes. It's like it's the one that's gonna like help to optimize the rest. If that makes sense.
Say, Rose, I want to ask you about mixing features, because not everybody's voice is the same. Everybody likes their shit differently. Stuff like that, especially with putting in on a project like this. Yeah, mixing features has to be, is it a headache or is it easy at this point?
I think especially with this project, since a lot of it was recorded during the camp process, like we did have a little bit of the luxury of, they may have been in the same room or they may have recorded at the same time. So that always helps. But just in general, it's usually when you dealing with so many different artists, textures and vocals and all that shit, automatically it's going to be a challenge, you know what I mean? But then once you introduce different recording engineers and different environments and different everything, then it's always just going to be an extra step just to kind of make sure everything is still in line. But it's similar to what Ali was saying and what Deb was saying in terms of keeping continuity across the project. Is like that's the goal. Is like, okay, you want to try to maintain a vocal. If usually is one artist who like their vocals way on top, maybe on this one we might have to sacrifice a little bit and bring them down a little or bring everybody else up. So across the project, you have that consistency of where everybody's living across the project.
I don't think people really understand like the constant like give and pull that happens when mixing in general, but the amount of that happens when doing like a soundtrack or like a collaborative like project, right? Is the constant. It's like I use this analogy when I'm speaking about mixing. It's like a Rubik's Cube, right? You're constantly twisting and turning, trying to get all the squares to be the same color. And think of that as a soundtrack, right? You're constantly, doing different techniques and trying different blends between tracks and things like that to make sure that the whole project, the colors of the project are all matching the sides.
Boz, I want to go touch on that with you being the unofficial Dreamville host. Order of operations when putting a collaborative or a compilation project together. What's like I always hear Ali speak about building the cake, right, from the foundation up. What's the order of operations of putting together a compilation?
You really gotta tip your hat to the producers. They kind of take that room and they give it a vibe, like sonically. So I think if each room is in the hands of a different producer and you can kind of walk in as an artist and be like, all right, this is my vibe right now. It might be more melodic and spacey, or you can go to the next room and it's trapped out and you're like, all right, let me get my bars off, you know? So I think all our camps have been grounded by our producers for sure.
Speaking of which, I want to go to you, Elite. We was just talking about it just right now, from Ari to DMX, right? I mean, that's crazy. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wasn't expecting that. But working with working across different textures, right?
Yeah.
From somebody like DMX, who I'm assuming is a lot of low end, not even from a mixing standpoint. That was crazy. That sounded crazy. No disrespect. But I'm talking about just working from those two different layers, right? From a producer standpoint, do you approach the production standpoint in a certain way? Like, you can't go in the studio and make something for Boz the same way you were going to make it for Ari.
100%. That's a good question because that was something that I had to adjust when I was working with Ari, like doing R&B. It was like a lot of times my drums would be so hard that like it would take her out of her zone. You know what I mean? It's like you got to learn how to produce. I don't want to say delicate, but you kind of got to be more delicate. You know what I mean? And even when it goes to the mixing process, it's like sometimes the goal is not to make the drums hit as hard as possible for this particular song. You know what I mean? It's just the way the song feels is a little bit more laid back. And that was something I had to adjust to working with Ari. But, you know, it starts with the sound selection. Like, what sounds am I picking to kind of create that mood? And also paying attention to her, paying attention to the artist, how she's reacting to what I'm doing. And what makes her light up and be like, oh, I like this. And what makes her be like, this is too much. So I had to definitely adjust.
Are there any producers? Anybody produce? Oh, okay, cool. When you go to mix, is there a certain way that you, like, obviously you get feedback from a mixing engineer, right? Like, oh, I need the stems. Then you send the stems and then it's like, well, this might need adjustment. Do you take that personal? Is that a collaborative thing? Do you not, depending on who you get it from? Like, what's that like?
When I mix?
No, I'm talking about when you send the songs to mix.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
If you end up outsourcing like a mix, like say you send it to Ali,
right,
and Ali says, "Yo, I think it'd be better if you do this," or this snare don't really sound right, this kick don't really sound right. Do you double check your work, or is that something that?
If I could just speak on that, because I think we just recently had, y'all
had a situation.
There was a situation. It was an Ari record that I tried to mix on that Jason killed.
Yeah.
Jason Giles, and I think that's like what's so incredible about a producer like Elite, right? Is being able to like try different things to find the best possible solution, right, for a final product of a song. Trying different mixers out, right? Working with different sounds, right? Even going back to the production style, right? Looking at how Drake and 40 work, right? Having so much space, looking at a song as like a canvas, leaving space for an artist like Ari to shine, right? Sonically, I think that's what I've got with the experience of working with Elite is being intentional, I would say, about the production per every situation. If I'm,
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, when you get to the mixing process, a lot of the time it's sensitive because it's like you've been living with these songs for so long. There's demoitis comes into play, and I've kind of learned over the years to try and give grace for that. You know what I mean? Because in the beginning, your instinct is like, whoa, this sounds different. And that's scary for a lot, especially the artist, you know what I mean? But for the producer too, like a lot of times it's like, wow, my drums sound totally different than they used to, they did before, you know what I mean? So that can be an ego check at first, and also it's like, it's just not what you're used to hearing. So you have to account for that. And I like to get, like when I get a mix back, I don't like to give feedback right away anymore. I like to sit with it a little bit. You know what I mean?
How long do you sit with the mix?
At least a day or two. You know what I mean? Where I'm listening to it constantly, different speakers, go in the car, I try to absorb what they did and then go back to the original and be like, all right, is this better? Is it, you know what I mean? You have to really make those choices carefully and let yourself process it, because if you just like hit somebody back right away after you hear the mix, your judgment isn't really sound, you know what I mean? It's an emotional reaction usually. So I try to give it as much time, and I try to give the engineer as much respect as possible, because, you're dealing with someone like Ali or Jason or someone like that. Like, these guys know what they're doing. So you have to respect the changes that they've made and really process it, you know what I mean? So I try to do that as much as possible. But with Creed, I will say, I didn't have any notes or any problems with any of the mixes.
Zero notes.
Yeah, I was just like, man, this all sounds great. Like, I liked every mix, everything that was. It was not like a that was not a battle. You know, it was easy. I would say that for Ali, he killed those. Or everybody on here, you know.
No, I wanted to Nick's point about the mixing and to your point about R&B, about Ari and stuff like that. Cyrus and Ali, the approach to mixing R&B versus hip hop, or like he was saying, turn the kick down. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say they're gonna turn their kick down.
Yeah, that's different. That's different. That's different. Everything is up. Now I'm fucking with you. Nah,
I'm not fucking with the turning the kick down ever. But
all I hear now is kick up and vocals up.
That's it.
That's it. Just kick up
Turn
and vocals
me
up.
up, Ali.
Yeah, that's it. At this point, I'm sending vocals back only solo. Niggas love this shit. Nah,
but the
like,
approach to mixing R&B, like if y'all want to speak on that.
No, I mean, there's definitely a bit of like being like intentional with the vocal production, right? You know, from doing SZA to, Summer Walker, which Cyrus and I have done the last 2 projects, is really just like being intentional with like having the vocal. Hey, at the end of the day, when you're mixing, right, a vocal is nothing but an instrument as well, right? So it's paying attention to the vocal as much as possible to let that be the driving force of the song, and then everything else is the flow behind it. So it's finding that balance like everything else, but the approach that I've personally taken, when it comes to mixing R&B, is really just having that vocal lead, and just having the artist shine, right? When you're working with incredible talent like, Summer, SZA, the plethora of the other artists that we work with, you want to let them shine,
Yeah, no, definitely everything he was saying. I think another thing I would speak on is, in turn, like the point you was making with Ali earlier in terms of respecting their creative decisions as a producer. I feel like especially nowadays, it's a lot of you want to mix to the ref to a certain extent, right? It's a fine science to it. You want to make it still feel familiar to the artist, so they don't feel like you took it and just went all the way left with it. You don't want to crazy change all the shit, but at the same time, you do need to add that next level of sheen and that polish to it. So I think it's an art in itself to be able to kind of enhance on what they've given you without changing it. And also to not be too quick to judge necessarily, say like we like to mix the drums first. I might be sitting there mixing the drums and the kick and the snare and the hat, and I'm thinking this snare ain't it.
Right.
And instead of jumping to conclusions first, I got to take a step back, kind of blend it as well as I can. And then maybe once I add everything else in, I'm going to realize that it is a perfect pocket for that snare. And then that allows you to kind of view it in a different sense.
It goes back to that give and pull, right? We all love some good sheen, right? So it's like you want to make sure that it's definitely just polished in a way that, you're able to, you want, it's, like I said, constant give and pull. Constant give and pull,
Hey, Boz, first of all, I just want to point out the fact that your skill set is elite. Okay, I don't think you get credit for that.
Thank you, bro.
But second of all, I think your ear is impeccable when it comes to. Are you involved heavily in your production? It seemed like you hands-on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you kind of irritating when it comes to like
No,
over the
you know what?
producers?
I like to take everything the producer can throw out, and then I'll trim the fat, because I'm not able to express. Obviously, I don't play nothing. I'm not a producer, but so I try to get as much on the board as possible. I might come with like samples or reference songs, but like I want this sound, I want that sound, or here's the sample I like, this timestamp to this timestamp. Can you flip it for me? I've always been involved that way. I find the more involved I get, the more successful those songs are. So, so I think it's just about fully being able to express my artistry. But usually I let the producer do their thing, max out, because I feel like if you jump in too early, you might nudge him in a way where you're not gonna get the full scope of it. So I'll just let them go crazy and then be like, all right, maybe like I love these chords, I don't like those strings, whatever, and then we could kind of remold around that.
I want to talk about the relationship between the artist. You're the only artist on the stage at this point, but I want to talk about the relationship between the artist and recording engineers. Are there recording engineers here? All right, perfect. A lot of recording engineers can't speak artists, and artists can't speak engineer, right? So I want to talk about the importance of having a go-to engineer. We had a youngin up here just earlier. He's with Hit Boy, but the importance of having a relationship or building that companionship with your recording engineer.
Nah, for real. My guy K Quick, I've been
Shout out to
recording
K
with
Quick.
him.
Shout out K Quick.
I think he'll be here tomorrow, right?
Saturday.
Saturday.
Quick and Mez talking about mixing production.
Yeah, Quick's been recording me since 2010. And over the years, we've developed so much trust that he's damn near like a vocal coach. You know, the dude can sing his ass off, you know, so he'll sit there and he'll push me to do more with my voice, and then he'll help me get there. He'll actually coach me through it, you know. So I don't even like recording without Quick, and he's all the way across the country in New York. I'll fly him out just to lay a verse, you know what I mean? It's that
crazy.
important to me, because sometimes you'll do something, and if you don't express that idea vocally the right way, and you're sitting with the reference, and you're like, I don't even like this song. You feel me? So you know, I think it's just wise to invest in that relationship.
Real quick, I've always loved that analogy, just when it comes to having that relationship with the recording engineer, right? Because that's how I got my start in the game, right? Recording Kendrick and being a recording engineer first. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays have that misconstrued. The relationship between a recording engineer and an artist,
Yeah.
it's like going on a road trip with your homies,
Yep.
right? You know, the artist knows where they want to go, but it's up to the engineer to drive them there, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's being
Yeah, don't be shy.
Don't
I
be
will say
shy,
that.
right?
I've recorded with just in random studios with new recording engineers, and some of them you can tell they don't want to feel like they're coming out of their place. But I would tell every recording engineer in here, if you hear something,
Facts.
express that to the artist, because we're trying to solve the puzzle
Facts.
in real time just as you are. You know? So
Exactly.
any input you got, I would always tell you to express it. The artist is gonna respect that.
And when it comes to being an engineer, a lot of people ask me personally, Ali, how do you build relationships? How do you do this? How do you do that? It's about starting at that point, right? Becoming irreplaceable, right? When you're working with an artist as a tracking engineer, that is the single most efficient way.
But it's intimate.
It's all intimate, right? You know what I'm saying? And once that artist feels that trust with you as a recording engineer, and that artist blows up, right? Your career is off to another level now, because that artist doesn't want to work with nobody else but you, right? So it's being able to take a step back to take that 2 forward, right? You know, invest time with building with the artist you're working with, right?
Guru, Ali,
For-
K-Quick,
yeah.
everybody, yeah.
40. It's all about
40.
building those relationships to where you're not just somebody in the room pushing 3, right? You're adding that creative input, and that's what's gonna separate everybody in this room today, right? It's how much are you gonna add to the record? What is gonna be your sonic thumbprint? Because the worst thing an artist is gonna say when you're trying some crazy fucking effects is, I don't like it. That's the only thing, is to just go above and beyond as a tracking engineer, right? That is your single most important step into entering the field of audio engineering and building a brand for yourself, is never feel like you can't take that step. You know what I'm saying? Be confident in the rooms.
It's a creative art. The way, you know, the artists and the producers and the mix engineers are, you know, all part of this gumbo. The recording engineers are too, you know.
100%.
So it's just in real time. You can direct where the song is going.
And I remember, Ali, you can help me out, but I remember you telling a story about you jumping in and changing Kendrick's voice. You know what I'm saying? And altering it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, on
and
Good
having
Kid, Mad
that-
City, yeah. I mean, that's a lot of the shit that, you know, honestly, Dre didn't understand, right? Coming in and doing swimming pools, right? When the vocal is pitched up and is panning left and right? It's getting a point to where, you know, as an audio engineer, you're providing value by creating an audio experience rather than just creating an up and down standard mix, right? You know, as an audio engineer, what has changed, you know, the direction of my own career, you know, and obviously I've had a nice career, right? It's by taking chances sonically, right? When Kendrick comes in, he knows I'm gonna just record a raw take, and Ali's gonna take that and go crazy with it, right? You know, that's because of the trust that we've built, you know? And it's also about me just not being scared to take those sonic leaps of trying things that don't make sense. You know, I use, you know, reverb plugins on or vocal plugins on drums, right? Using, you know, some type of distortion on whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? Just, there's no limit to sound, right? There's no blueprint to a good mix. Stay creative, stay hungry, and don't be scared to fuck up, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, when you go back and listen to Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, right? A lot of the backgrounds you hear with Anna and Kendrick were fuck ups that we end up keeping. You know what I'm saying? It's, you know, don't be scared to take a chance, you know, because all those chances you make are going to create a sound that is not replicable, right? And that's when, you know what I'm saying, you're able to fucking change the game. Y'all making me blush up here, you know what I'm saying?
Now I want to go to you, Nicholas, real quick about the risk that Ali was just speaking on. are there any risks that you've taken from a mastering standpoint? Because you were speaking about the specifics, and Demetrius was talking about sticking to the book. But are there any risks that you take from mastering engineers?
Yeah, no, that's a great yes. Your answer is yes. And the thing about mastering, especially in the streaming era, is what DSPs do these days is always a moving target. So, for instance, when Apple went to lossless ALAC, right? It's a different file format that they're putting out. So when I'm delivering these masters, it's almost like, all right, what's gonna happen, when it gets to Apple? And if you do it enough and you listen back to what's happening when these actually get uploaded, then for me, I've been able to adjust and make changes so that when I send something to Boz, right, and he's approving it, it's gonna sound the same on Spotify. And I don't want to mess up, his work, right? I want it to sound the same on Spotify as it sounds on Tidal. And I think to do that in the streaming era, we've had to take some risks. We couldn't just have it hit at 0, print it to CD, and whatever it sounds like in your car stereo, that's what it is.
It should be about feeling, right? I feel like a lot of people, especially, that's why I shit on music schools all day, because they teach you ones and zeros instead of following your fucking heart. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there is no rules to music creation, so why follow a blueprint that was made back in the 70s or 80s, right? Follow your fucking ear, your heart, use your ears, and if it feels fucking good, you know what I'm saying, run it.
I want to go to you, and then whoever else wants to jump in on this. It's a hot topic, and EngineEars is a platform that you handcrafted, but and Nick talked about it earlier as far as AI and using it as a tool to not subsidize what you do. Nobody, like you said, it's a feeling. It's not just a formula. It's not an algorithm. It's a feeling. But EngineEars as a platform clearly has embraced technology. So can you speak
100%.
to it?
I mean, when it comes to AI, it's all about embracing it, right? At the end of the day, technology is moving faster than ever before. You can't get rid of it. The goal that we're trying to achieve with EngineEars is using AI, using technology to advance, to help you, right? As a digital assistant, or to create solutions to help maybe start a mix for you, right? Like prep a mix, right? It's using AI and using tools like that as a utility, right? And again, there's gonna be, all those things about, AI creating songs from scratch and all this other stuff. That's fun, whatever. But when it comes to really playing the game of music, right? The human touch can never be replicated, right? But with the human touch, you can use AI to advance that, So I would say, not definitely put it to the side. When it comes to automation of having AI doing the work for you, I'm 100% against that. I want to build a platform to where, AI is not taking food out of all of our mouths, our families and kids' mouths, right? But using it in a way where it's going to help us do not 2 or 3 mixes a day, but 10 mixes a day, to help all of us even eat more, So it's finding that thin line to be able to, implement it into our workflows to help advance, not to fucking, create presets to use other niggas' mixes to, fuck all that, all this, I want to go in about how I feel about one of these products, but, it's only Thursday. I'm gonna wait until Saturday.
Yeah, we're gonna save that.
But
make sure y'all come back.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's, instead of, handicapping a whole industry, right, by having these tools do the work for you, right, we want to develop things that are gonna have the AI and those tools aid you in becoming the best creative that you can be. You know what I'm saying?
And Boz, I wanted to, because there's a lot of AI replicating people's voices and stuff like that.
That whole AI was hard. I ain't gonna lie. I ran that back once. Like, hold on, sign this AI.
Do you look at it as a joke, or do you take it serious?
Nah, I mean, I take it seriously. I think though, it's always gonna be about taste. I'm hoping that, I guess, the people that have to input these prompts or do whatever are of good taste. I mean, I think, like Ali said, there's no going back. You got to embrace it or get left. So I don't know necessarily how it applies to what I do, but I do think that taste is always going to be, even like with engineering, you're dealing with frequencies. Obviously, there's numbers. I'm sure there's a science to it when you break it down, but what is really going to stand the test of time is your personal taste, how you feel about what you're mixing. So I think it's going to apply the same way to AI.
It's the imperfections of the human touch
There you
that
go.
AI cannot replicate, right? But when it comes to AI, right, we've utilized it on the EngineEars platform, right, to help make connections for audio engineers, right?
Yeah,
So when
to pair you
To
with
pair it, we created the Find My Engineer feature, where we're seeing artists all over the world dropping their reference into our AI feature, and it's reading the metadata of the song, and from that, it's able to give you 3 to 5 selections of engineers that last completed a song that's matching that, metadata criteria. So, we're using metadata to make connections with artists and engineers from around the world. And that's the way we want to utilize it, right? Clap it up for the homies. Clap it up for C-Rules, Boz, Elite,
Appreciate
Dep.
y'all.
Shout out to y'all.